Well, hello there. Thanks for joining us in our new video. So we just wanted to give you a heads up as we start this video. Oh, and by the way, Gina's busy working on a project here, so she's not going to say anything. She's just an innocent bystander right now. But this video, we're going to recap our move from Utah to Florida, cross-country move. It was full of all kinds of excitement. But we just wanted to tell you about the format. The format that's coming is because two of our helpers live across the country still. We had to do this in a Zoom environment. So we're having this conversation, reliving the memories, the good and the bad. And just wanted to give you that heads up. Now, as we get into this, we hope that you'll be able to learn and enjoy the process that we went through. Because even though we had lots of challenges and trials and unexpected disasters, we had blessings and miracles along the way after every one of those. And that's what we want to share. So we want you to enjoy this video and we'll just jump right into it. So thank you. So when we moved cross country from Utah to Florida, we had two helpers. Talen, who is our son, and Nala, our granddaughter, came with us and helped us make this happen. And it was pretty crazy, wasn't it? So, in fact, 3 days before, no, actually, I think it was like 5 days before we were ready to move, we got a snowstorm. Do you remember that, Talon?
I honestly don't.
Yeah, we were outside all talking and we were like moving all the things, trying to get go quickly.
Yep. Yeah, it was.
I do not remember that.
And by the time it was time to go get the trucks, it had all melted. Because this is in mid-April, right? No, early April. Early April.
Yeah.
So I think probably the center of all of our memories is something we called the trailer, right?
Yeah.
So we had to transport.
Well, let's back up. You had a trailer built specifically for the Land Rover.
Yes, we did.
And it was supposed to carry the weight.
We decided we couldn't find a trailer to rent that you could take one way that was big enough for a Range Rover. And so we decided to buy a used trailer, and it was actually going to be cheaper than renting a trailer, and we'd own a trailer for later. So we tried this trailer out 3 days before we got ready to pack, and we hauled a bunch of stuff up to Clancy's house. And just in that trip, the trailer was rubbing on the tires. The guy,
yeah, that was the first red flag.
Yeah, the guy who built it put the wood along the outside of the trailer, the wood deck. He was being fancy, and it was rubbing on the tire. So we had to get in and cut that out before we even left. So let's talk about loading. I mean, yes, we did all the packing. We packed our trucks.
Yeah, that was all easy compared to the trip.
So what's the last thing you remember that we did, Nala, in our packing? What's the last thing we packed?
I think it was the Range Rover on the trailer, and it was horrible.
Talon, what do you remember about that?
I remember it barely fit on the trailer, and I remember all of us standing there saying, "I don't think this is a good idea." But it was everything was packed and ready to go.
We
were leaving that night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we left late that night.
That was. So what do you remember seeing, Talon, when I was driving the Range Rover up those ramps?
I think I remember seeing wasn't it the boards coming up on the trailer?
Well, they may
Is
have
that right?
that too.
They bent.
But the
Or they
big
were
problem
starting to
is the
bend.
ramps. The ramps just like kind of
Oh, yeah,
stumped.
literally.
Oh yeah, the ramp's completely bent. Yeah,
So
yeah.
so we had a neighbor who said, "Oh, I can fix that." And he grabbed the ramps and put them upside down over the curb, and he drove his truck up and down and straightened them out for us, so that we could get the car back off the trailer when we got there.
Yeah.
Still working away. Trying to get the car on.
They pretty much own like half the state.
What's that?
Left late.
And we even had to pull over in American Fork and literally read
remember
like
that.
strap down thing. Like
That's
we
right.
were 15 minutes into the journey and it was already like starting to show signs of an adventurous journey.
Well, and remember, we only had two drive. Like I was going to drive with Dad, and you were going to drive, and you had Nella, so that we both
Hmm.
we had two drivers and two companies to keep us awake and be safe. That was the whole idea.
And then when we got the big 28-foot truck packed, we still had a whole garage full of stuff to pack, and we had to go rent a second truck.
Well, and also we've calculated that it's going to take us 35 hours, right? And we were going to do it in like
3 days.
3 days. That was the initial plan. Now we are going to transfer my car behind this, which will pull it easier. And then I'll drive Randy's car. Pulled in. It's late at night, and we've got all the trucks and cars and trailers filling up with gas. And there's the other one. But we're here. So just taking off from American Fork. So I think we got as far as, when was the first episode? Like,
So we
think you
stopped.
guys-
We drove as far as we could. It was dark before we got out of there,
yeah.
and we drove as far as we could, which was Helper, Utah,
Oh, that's right.
just outside of Price, or Wellington, Utah. And we just stayed overnight at a truck stop in the parking lot. And as we kind of got situated and I walked over to look at the trailer to check things out, I could already see signs of the front edges of the trailer were kind of sloping downward from the center. And I thought, oh, this is not good. We're going to have to keep an eye on this. So you remember sleeping in the truck overnight, Nala?
Yes. It was like the most uncomfortable thing ever. It
Yeah.
was so
It
bad.
was going to be a few hours, right? We
Yeah.
were trying to get some sleep. Yeah. Yeah, so we made it work. I think we got up really early and left again. That was uneventful, but we didn't make it far after that.
So we're just starting to descend down the valley into Moab.
But we're only at this point 4 hours maybe into it.
Yeah.
And what happens?
So the trailer we're pulling with the car on it. Apparently the back tire was a retread or something, or it was really old. The tread came right off the tire. And as it came off, it bent the wheel well. And so we were about 2 miles from town, and we had to drive, what was it, like 15 miles an hour for the last 2 miles off the edge of the road, just trying to limp that trailer to the tire store.
So I remember I have a friend. Did I call her to ask her?
Yeah, you called her.
Yeah.
Well,
so
because remember we got into the store and they were like, we had to wait quite a while, right? Because
told me it was like,
they only had one shop in
Oh,
town.
yeah.
they said it was like a 6-hour wait or something, a 5-hour
Yeah.
wait. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So then you called your friend who came over, kind of just chatted, and yeah.
So
Somehow we got.
yeah, while we were talking, I actually drove pulled the trailer around the back of their tire store, found a level spot, and just decided we were going to jack it up and pull the tire off ourselves and figure it out from there. About the time we got it jacked up and taken the lug nuts off, the guy comes out from the tire store and he says, "You know what? Things went faster than we thought. We can do this right now." And so this is one reoccurring theme I remember in the trip. Every time we had a problem, there would be some kind of miracle that would follow it up. And here we thought we were going to wait 5 hours. We just started doing the work ourselves, trying to figure it out as we went. And they walk out an hour later and tell us they can get the tire changed. And they had a new tire on it and put back on the trailer within 20 minutes.
Yeah. Did you get a spare at that point?
We had a spare, so we thought, which leads us into the next one. So while we're there at the tire store, there's two things that happened. As we're pulling into the tire store, the wheel on the tongue jack of the trailer breaks off. Remember that? We're pulling out of the median through the gutter, and it snaps the wheel right off. The guy had welded the wheel on this tongue jack and came right off. And then while I'm jacking the trailer up, I look under, the spare tire was mounted under the trailer. And I look under there, and the mount that was mounted to the trailer, 3 out of 4 of the bolts that held it on, the nuts were completely gone. And so the spare tire was just hanging there with one loose nut holding it in place. So to avoid an accident, we took that spare tire mount right off, and we took a tow strap or a ratchet strap, and we secured that tire to the tongue of the trailer for the rest of the journey. So what happened is we got driving, there was a sharp spot underneath the trailer that I didn't notice, and that sharp spot just cut through the ratchet strap. And we're what, a half hour out of Moab when that tire.
Yeah, and that thing flew off. I remember looking in the rear view mirror and seeing it was a black Audi Q5 or a blue one, and it literally swerved on the freeway to barely miss getting hit by a spare tire,
And
which
yeah,
then
another
ended
miracle.
up in the middle of the freeway, and
Oh,
all the cars had to go around it, and we had to pull off, and
Oh.
I had to sprint down the freeway to then pick it up in the middle and get it off the road.
oh my goodness. I know that was quick thinking on your part. Oh,
Did you see
That car, that
Nala?
oh,
Were
that
you watching when that happened?
Yes. And then Coco was like, that black Audi was like tailgating me, so that's what it gets.
But again, challenge comes, the tire falls off, it's bouncing down the road towards a car, and somehow that car was able to swerve around it and everything was okay. But we were off again. So
this is where you
what?
This is where you get the next flat, right?
No, I think what happened is when we took the tire off, when we started inspecting that spare tire, we noticed that it was so old, there were cracks in the sidewall. You remember that, Talen? And it was actually leaking air.
yeah, like a used crappy spare tire,
So,
which we should have checked before we even left on the trip.
yeah, we should have, but we kind of believed that the guy that built the trailer for us knew what he was doing, and we didn't. I didn't. That was my fault. So what Mom and I were doing as we're driving, next big town is Cortez, Colorado. we're on the phone calling all the tire shops in Cortez, Colorado, trying to find a tire that's the size to fit this spare. So we took that tire in, and he says, yeah, it'll be a little while, but we'll get a tire on there for you. And I think we went back out and we were chatting, and he had it done in like 15 minutes. So we strapped that tire back on and we take off. You remember what happened? Nala, do you remember New Mexico?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that was the
fun.
worst one of the whole trip.
It was like the car was like breaking the trailer. The trailer was breaking, so we had to go on the side of the road, and it was like the middle of the night. So we left the car and we like went to go to a hotel or something because it was so late.
And the whole entire Range Rover that was on the trailer was tilted like this because the boards literally broke and it sunk down.
But I actually, before it happened, I actually had a feeling. I told Dad, I said, just, you need to pull over right now. I just had a feeling that something was wrong. And that's when we pulled over and you saw it just sunk. So we're stuck on the side of the road. The trailer was completely bent. We tried to back it up, but it's
so we're gonna back this
bent now and bowed at the front. So now we gotta offload it.
Unload this car.
We need to take the car off. It smelled dark, but the trailer started bowing, so this car's just too heavy. It was specifically made for this car, but not gonna work, so we gotta back it off.
Guys, I'm gonna need therapy after this. We're gonna go that way. We're gonna try to go that way. Okay, here we come. This must be devastating. I'm gonna get an angle. Oh my gosh.
Going. All right, you're on top of the ramps. You're not on top, you're touching them.
Okay, so we're at the ramps and Champ's about to go down.
Keep going. Not on yet, fully. Keep going. Already on.
Okay, we've got the car off.
So here we are. We are an hour and a half outside of New
we
Mexico.
pulled
We
over.
weren't there yet. And it was just not dark yet, but it was close. And so we took a look at it, and underneath the trailer, the A part of the frame that goes towards the tongue was actually cracked, like 2/3 of the way. And the whole car was leaning, like you said, to one side. So we knew we couldn't pull any further.
Yeah, so the scariest part was trying to get that off. That was like,
And the problem was we messed those ramps up so bad when we loaded it that we didn't want to use the ramps to offload it. So here we've got a 28-foot U-Haul towing it was about a 20-foot long trailer. And so we're trying to find a place where we can back this trailer up to either a ravine or a hill, something where we can back it up to the hill and we can just drive right off the trailer onto the hill. Problem was the trailer was so long that anything we found, we couldn't get the right angle. And so we ended up just pulling off the road into a little pullout. And what do you remember, Talon?
It just took forever. I mean, it started to get dark, remember, we're on the side of the freeway. It just took so long. It took so long to get that thing off.
You remember the ramps were messed up, and the ramps had mesh on them, and the mesh had pulled off when we loaded the trailer. So I was afraid if we backed the Rover onto those ramps, the
It would
tires
pop the tires.
would mesh and either pop the tires or push the ramps off the trailer, and the Rover would just tumble off the end. And the trailer's high. It wasn't a regular car hauler. It was how high off the ground? Probably at least 2 feet, 2.5 feet.
So we had to tow strap the ramps
We
basically to
reversed
the
them.
underside.
We
Yeah.
reversed them so the bottom of the ramp was at the top, but there wasn't a lip to hold them in place. So we used ratchet straps to secure them to the edge of the trailer.
I think I just wasn't watching at this point.
No,
And all of this was in
filming
the
this.
dark, by the way.
Yeah, pitch black.
What do you remember, Noah, when you were filming this?
Oh, I was filming it and I was like, I'm gonna need therapy after this.
Yeah, I couldn't even do it. No,
Yeah, well,
I was like,
I was like
I
watching
can't
it and
watch.
Chip was backing it out and it was too. Oh, it's so scary.
Well, because as you were backing it off the trailer, they were bending more and more and more of the ramps.
So bad.
Yeah,
So
all
it's basically,
sinking through the trailer and not like having to get a crane.
yeah.
So the good news is we got it off. We had to leave it on the side of the road. I was on the phone at this point with the guy who built the trailer, and I wasn't very happy. And he says, I'll tell you what, he says, I'll get AAA to come pick up your car if you can get to New Mexico. And so we left it on the side of the road and drove in and got a hotel, which is what Nala remembered.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, we find out that the guy couldn't actually get anybody to pick up the car. So Talen and I drove back out, and he drove the Range Rover back to New Mexico. Yeah, so Mom gets the idea to call the Land Rover dealer and see if they can arrange transportation, right?
Yeah, and so I call them and it's like no problem. They actually have one going out, and so we drove the Range Rover over there, and it stayed there, and then they picked it up and took it. So that wasn't a problem, only it cost quite a bit of money to get that on that truck.
Mom and Talon went to drop off the Range Rover, and while they were gone, I was in the hotel parking lot
packing and
repacking. We had to pull everything out of the Range Rover. We had both Land Rovers packed to the ceiling, and so we had to pull out everything out of those and put them on the trailer where the car had been sitting, because it looked like the trailer was secure enough to carry 500 pounds, just not 6,000 pounds.
You had to go buy bins.
Yeah.
Now everything was open, and we had to go get all those black rubber bins. Remember, we had to repack all those.
We had to repack
those on the trailer.
Secure it down, buy a tarp. It was fun. So we spent the entire day in a New Mexico parking lot, didn't we?
Yeah, we're not even that far from home yet. We're not even. Are we a third of the way yet? And we're like 3 days in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost Talon's birthday.
Yes, and we're trying.
And we're like,
that's right.
We have to get there before his birthday.
Yes, we wanted to be on the beach celebrating Talon's birthday.
Which, spoiler alert, did not happen.
He was driving.
But literally not too long after that, we then got the next flat tire.
Yeah.
So yeah, finally we stayed overnight somewhere, and we get up the next morning, and we're in Texas. And now we're cruising down on the road. We're getting closer, and we're on the way. And what happens?
I don't know. Another tire blows, right?
The other tire blows, but this time we're like, okay, no problem. We got a spare. So I opened the back of the Rover, pull out my toolkit, and I can't find it.
Oh, yeah.
The tools were gone, and so we had to come up with this. All we needed was a socket and something to drive that socket with. And we were able to find an AutoZone that was not too far away. Another blessing. It was just like a mile and a half away. And we we take the tire off and we go to put the new tire on. And anybody remember what happens, Talen?
I don't remember.
I don't
A brand
remember.
new spare tire that we just had remounted on the wheel that was provided with the trailer. We go to put
Oh,
it
it doesn't
on,
fit?
and the wheel doesn't even
Yeah,
fit.
doesn't fit. It's not the right.
Pattern on
Oh,
the
that's
tire.
right.
It was a
Yeah.
totally different bolt pattern.
And just
But this is when we pulled the U-Haul trailer over, but too close to the interstate
Oh my gosh.
sign on the side of the road.
Oh, this
And it
is
just-
okay.
and we were trying to pull the pole, so
It basically
That's funny.
scraped along the side of the U-Haul, so we had to pull that back to create enough room to back the U-Haul up to
Yeah.
get back on the road. Oh my gosh.
That
I
was
forgot about all
I
this.
have all of that on film because I cannot
me too.
believe that I'm filming Talen thinking, what is he doing? Why is he having to
Yeah.
do that? What
It
is-
was literally rubbing against it. Fortunately, we could pull it back, but
yeah.
at least Texas was a beautiful drive. I do remember that, all the windmills driving through Texas.
Okay, too funny. Talen has to hold the pole out. So Dad is pulling the pole out so it doesn't scrape the truck. Look at that. Oh my gosh, seriously. Oh my heck, it's gonna scrape the side. Look at Talen's literally pulling. It's a good thing he does weights so that it won't scrape. Wow. Oh my gosh.
This is like a roller coaster. I don't know how people get through here. Ooh, we're going into a break.
So we're cruising through Texas, and we're finally getting closer. What happens next?
We don't stop. We got to make it to Florida.
oh yeah, we go through like
We actually drove 20 hours trying to get to Florida for Talen's birthday.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember being so
Oh, yeah,
tired
we
driving
got
at
there.
night.
I think we're so close, right? Like
yeah,
maybe an hour. Right?
yeah,
You remember Talen how close we are?
I think it was a few hours.
yeah.
But like it was close enough to where if we weren't tired, we could have just pushed it. But so we ended up pulling off just in the trees, literally. And I was by myself in the U-Haul on just the bench, sleeping, waking up on my birthday. Yeah, I was pretty pissed. Because we still had to drive. Woke up on my birthday in the U-Haul, but then we still had at least a few hours to drive to get there.
If I remember right, we got what, like 4 hours sleep or something?
Yeah, we got a few hours, and
we went to bed late, got up at sunrise or just before. It was about sunrise.
Yeah.
And drove the rest of the way. We finally see water for the first time. We get closer, going down the little lane to our house, and when we finally reach the house, we just park the trucks in the driveway. We go in the house and we crash for like 3 hours. And then we get to go out and see beautiful Florida. This is on Sunday. We just take the afternoon to rest, and then Monday we're back at it unpacking.
okay, so we moved everything, unloaded by ourselves.
I'm dead.
5 hours were emptied, and some of it's here.
Everything that we thought we would need right away, we of course distributed throughout the house where it needed to go, but it would take a few weeks to get everything unloaded and put into its proper place. So, I guess this is the conclusion of our big move video. So how do we summarize this? What do you think we learned from this?
Well, I think there's a lot that we learned. I feel like
even after being here and unpacking, I'm like, I should have got rid of what I packed. I should have gotten rid of half of what I packed. Like what I thought I needed, I didn't need.
We prepared for months. We sold stuff.
We thought we did really well.
We gave away stuff. We thought we were so streamlined.
But we've been accumulating for like over 30 years. So that was a lot of stuff to get rid of. And you think you're throwing away good things, but at the end of the day, we live in a world now that's really sad that everything's disposable. And I think we have to kind of think that way. I wished I would have thought more about, I can buy that. Like, I don't need to bring that. Especially things like, and I did get rid of a lot of it, like sheets and towels. And I just think all of that's replaceable. Kitchen items, they're replaceable. Dishes, you can buy dishes.
But the stuff that really makes a difference are the bulky items. You start packing that truck, and all of a sudden, it's looking pretty full really quickly because of the big furniture, the beds and the dressers and shelves, and we got rid of a lot of that as well. But
yeah, I think if you're moving across, it's one thing to move in the same state or the same town.
City, yeah.
But when you're moving across country, I think it's really about thinking about the bare necessities, and that when you have to have enough money to not only move, but to repurchase and make and just buy those things that are necessary. We just didn't need to keep a lot of the things that, like I said, are replaceable.
Right. And then the items that you do decide to keep, if you're doing it yourself, take some time to protect it.
Used shrink wrap to wrap everything, and that's how we kept it together. That's how we kept drawers together. We did this, and then all of these had shrink wrap on them, and it just kept everything so that it didn't scratch. So all of these, again, they're all shrink wrap. This is actually a table. We took the legs off and shrink wrapped, used cardboard in between. Just kind of protected everything. Even the cabinets like this were shrink wrapped. And the chairs. And then the legs to the chair were in the back, and it just kind of kept everything together in one piece. So this is how we moved out food storage. We kind of labeled everything and put it in here. And I don't know, we're not sure. We got to figure out how to do food storage here in a Florida home since they don't have basements. So as far as packing, I used these boxes from Home Depot, and they held up awesome. There were a few that smashed, but for the most part, they were really good. These yellow totes by far from Home Depot. Yeah, we got those at Home Depot too. They were awesome. And we labeled them. They held up the best. I would highly recommend them. I did use like clear bins. Most of them cracked. Most of them broke. I wanted to be able to see what they were, but a lot of them did not hold up to moving. So, but I would highly recommend these yellow ones. So I thought I'd show Randy and mine's little office setup in amongst all of the boxes. Yeah, I mean, and all that said, we did move both our businesses, which is a big deal, and a lot of our stuff that we moved was our business. But even looking at that, I feel like there were things we could have gotten rid of in the business aspect of it. Again, disposable, like you can replace some of those items. Yes, you need certain things, like it's really, you need those, but we definitely could have gotten rid of a lot more.
Yes.
And especially, like, I think of it as we had a new home we were coming to, and I think you decorate differently. So for me specifically, it was like, get rid of all your decorations, get rid of all your, I didn't bring a lot. I brought a few, but I still feel like even like lamps, and unless they're really a keepsake, something special that you're going to use to decorate, which is how I like to decorate, eclectic. And so I do have a few things that I just love, and I can't replace them. Bring those. But most of it can be replaced, furniture-wise.
So what you're saying is pre-think your designing of your new space.
Home, of your new space. Because a lot of times it doesn't work in your new space. Like, you want it new, you're changing the whole look and feel of, it just doesn't. We were coming to the beach, and so being in the mountains and having a mountain home versus the beach home, those were completely different things.
Yes. So speaking of getting there, when you decide how you're going to transport your belongings, lots of options. If you're going to do it yourself, well, I think this applies probably to anything, but for us, we chose to do it ourselves, and we priced our moving options, what kind of trucks, U-Haul or budget. We shopped all that. It was in I think the late winter, early fall, or early spring, and prices were pretty good. We thought, we can do this, we can manage this. But we didn't start packing, we didn't start getting serious about it until April, and it seemed like about the 1st of April that all the prices went up. Like it was the moving season, and they bumped prices up. Yeah. So do your research on that. It cost us an extra $3 or $4 grand just by not having booked it when we shopped it, instead of waiting till the last minute like we did. So there are a lot of options. So if you move yourself, you've got the trucks. U-Haul and budget are pretty much your only two options that will move both ways if you're going long distance. And when I say both ways, I mean one way. You can take it and leave it. You unpack and you return it to somewhere local. If you want to do pods, you've got U-Cart.
The best way would be just to hire someone and have them do it for you. That would be my highly recommended one. Is next time I'm moving, I'm hiring someone. I don't care what it costs.
The other two pod type are Sure Move by Estes, and then Pack Rat. For our case, it wasn't even a consideration because we have been married, like Gina said, for so many years, and we've had so many kids, and we've accumulated a lot.
Basically almost 40 years.
A container type move didn't make any sense. We couldn't fit anything in a container. And so, but if you're just starting out, it might be a good option. And then the moving trucks.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you're in the military, you got it made. Join the military and have them move you. I think that's
a company who's going to pay for it. That's another good option.
Yes, it is.
But otherwise, save and do the best option for you.
Yeah, but just consider, take a step back and really think through this. How big is your family? How long have you been married? What have you collected? Oh, the other thing is your vehicles. If you're moving cross country, think long and hard about how you're transporting those and if it's worth it. We thought long and hard about selling Gina's Range Rover before we moved.
We should have sold it.
And we came up with all these reasons why it didn't make sense. And
well, I didn't want you stressed about it. It was another thing to add to the list of moving. But in hindsight, that would have been better.
We should have sold it.
Yeah.
We had so many problems trying to transport that, additional costs. And then it got here, and we both work remotely.
With that being said, I do think the additional cost of hiring a truck to transport your vehicles is a really good option, rather than you trying to transport it, which is what we did.
Yes, and if you do that, make sure you buy a good, reliable trailer.
Yeah.
As you've seen in the video.
I think one of the things that we didn't cover, though, is back to packing, making sure that you label everything. That's been super helpful because we were really organized, and our lists on our boxes was like literally every little item, which has been really helpful in unpacking and finding things rather than an awkward table.
So if you do it yourself, take time to do it right. The other thing to consider is if you move yourself, think through the driving situation. How many drivers, if you're married, do you want to be apart for however long you're going? Is that feasible? Do you need to take people with you to help drive? Does it make sense, or do you just call a moving company?
Yep.
So I think that's pretty much it. I know I wish we had taken more video footage for you for this, but there was just so much going on that it was, we felt fortunate and blessed to just arrive. And it was a real adventure for us. And so if you set out to do the same thing, just plan really well. I think that's our best advice.
Yeah.
Any parting words, Gina?
No, I think it was a good adventure and we learned a lot. It was a big move for us. We've never made a move that big. And we learned, which is always the case with experiences in life.
But thanks for joining in, and we'll see you in the next video.